Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Miss Couture, and today is another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So basically what we've been doing so far is we've been working our primary color triangle. So we've completed the red and the blue, and now we're working our way through the color yellow. So we've already added red, we've already added blue, we've already did our yellow fade, and we already did add the true black to our yellow to see the color interaction. And now we're working with the secondary colors, so we're going to be adding green, Kelly green today into our brilliant yellow. So we're using a Dharma Trading Co. The main reason I'm using those colors specifically is because Dharma does have a little starter pack with primer colors in it. So I think it's important that we explore those colors because you don't need a freaking huge color. Hi, Zoe. We don't need a very big selection of colors. We just need to have our primary colors and understand how they interact with each other. And once we know how they interact with each other, we have better understanding of color theory and we can create colors. We can pretty much create all the colors that we want. So let's get into this. Welcome back to another episode of Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So in this first portion of the series, we've been working the triangle of the primary colors. We've completed the red, we've completed the blue, and we've been working our way through the yellow. So we've already added red, blue, we've already worked our white fade, and we've already added black into our yellow. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be adding Kelly green into the yellow because we want to be able to compare the Kelly green when we're going to be working with Kelly green as our main character. So what we're going to do first is we're going to be doing a stock solution, a 1% stock solution, which is 1 gram of dry powder for 100 milliliter of water. I'm only doing the Kelly green today because we've already done the brilliant yellow in the past episode and I still have some left over, so we're not going to do it. But before doing anything else, please make sure that if you're going to be dyeing yarn, you're going to be wearing the proper PPE to protect your lungs, please. Technically, I should be wearing gloves, but I'm not because I'm not that great at following my own advice. Please just be careful. Okay, I will be sounding a little muffled. That's okay. So I'm going to be measuring 1 gram and make sure that your scale is at 0 when you start working. I have too much. A tiny bit too much. Come on. Perfect. So we can do this. So we're going to do a tiny bit of a paste. Okay. So now that the powder is no longer in a powder form, I can remove my respirator. We're just going to work a little bit the little clump over here, and we're going to be adding the rest of the water, and we want 100 milliliters. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so we have our stock solutions. Now we're going to go grab the containers. And because we want the yellow to be our main character, we're going to do 1% of the shades in each of those mason jars for the yellow. So it's going to be 10 milliliter of our 1% stock solution. And this is why I'm using 10 gram mini skeins, just to make the math a little easier on my brain. So we're going to measure 10 milliliter for each of those. Okay, and the main reason I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it, so I have this brilliant yellow as my main character as of right now, is because when we're going to be working the green Kelly, the Kelly green, I want to compare when we have green Kelly as like secondary color versus primary colors. So now we're going to be adding our green Kelly from 0.5% depth of shade up to 5 to a 1% depth of shade over here. So it's going to be zero point 0.5, 0.05 milliliters, zero point 0.1 milliliter, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1%, so 10 milliliter. So let's do this. You might be wondering why am I using this instead of my syringe? It's because my syringe got the rubber thingy stuck inside of itself, so I can't take it out. And it's quite annoying. But that's life. I can I can work other ways. So that's fine. We're fine. Everything is fine. Okay. Let's grab on the. We need to stir this a little bit. It's kind of cool how this is just not moving. Huh. I'll be curious to see the comparison from versus when we did the adding blue into the yellow. It should be interesting to compare the both. We'll see if we get a lighter color. This is very. This looks almost neon. I love that. Is there neon pigment in green Kelly? I don't think so. I don't think so. And there's no surprise here, seeing that everything is pretty much green. No surprise whatsoever. I was expecting this. Green Kelly is usually a color that will take the stage. And as usual, please be reminded that every time that you're using something that touches um, your your dyes, it just become your dye stuff now. We do not want to do any cross contamination. So this is only dedicated to dyeing yarn. Okay, so we're going to be adding this into our double boiler now. Okay. So there is no citric acid as of right now in the mason jars. We're going to be adding that in about 15 minutes. We just want to make sure that the color absorbs at a slower rate so that we have a good coverage of the yarn. And we're going to turn this on because we know it takes longer for the water to warm up. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to be waiting 15 minutes before adding the citric acid in the mason jars. After that, we're going to let this heat up until we reach 85 to 95 Celsius. Once we've reached that temperature, we're going to let it cook for half an hour. And then after that half hour, we're going to come back and check where we're at. Green Kelly has a tendency to bleed, so we might need to readjust a little bit the citric acid level, but we're just going to look it out at that moment. And we might just do 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes, but not longer than that, because if we go past the 45 minutes, usually we're starting to see degradation in the yarn, which we do not want to do. We don't want to burn the yarn either. We've learned our lessons for that. So we're going to see each other in 15 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes since we've last seen each other. We're now ready to be adding the citric acid. Now, rule of thumb for citric acid is usually about 1 tablespoon per pound of yarn. So it's 454 grams of yarn. We only have 10 grams mini skeins in those jars, so we're barely doing a quarter of a teaspoon, but that's okay. So we're not quite there yet for temperature, so we're going to let it at least 45 minutes, so it will be reaching the proper temperature by that time. And then after that, we're going to be turning off the heat, but I will see you in about 45 minutes to see where we are at with this one. Okay, that's good. So it's been a half an hour, and there's just a hint of green in those ones, which I was expecting to have a little bit of green over there. But we're still going to turn this off, and we're going to let this cool off completely overnight, and tomorrow we're going to be washing the skeins and we're going to be drying them. See you tomorrow. So here we're expecting to be working a little bit harder to make sure that we remove all excess dye from the jar, well, from the skeins, because I was able to see a tint of color for the darker shades, which I was expecting, because as soon as you're closer to 1% of the shades for Kelly green, we usually see some bleeding happening when we are washing the excess of dye of the skeins. So I was expecting that, and I will be able to show you afterwards that the darker shades did indeed have a tint left in the jars. So this is why we will be working a little bit harder, and I will have to do a few rinse off to make sure that we've removed all excess dye, which is not surprising. I think what I'm going to do though at some point is I want to compare Dharma, which is the company that we're currently using, with the Kelly green. I wanted to compare it to maybe Procam to see if Procam also bleeds once you're close to like a 1% depth of shade. And maybe I will have to switch up to another company if it's a Dharma thing, or it might just be how Kelly green is created. It might just be the pigment used in it that have a tendency to bleed, because we know that some blues have more of a tendency to bleed when you're washing up the excess dyes, where other blues are not. So it might just be the pigment used in the formula to create that Kelly green that has a tendency to do that. So this is just information to keep in mind when you're working with different companies. They have different formulas and sometimes they behave differently. So this is just a little piece of advice that I can give you if you're starting out in your dyeing journey. So what we're going to do, we're going to be putting that in the spin dryer, letting it dry overnight, and I'll show you the jars, and after I'll show you the final result. So you can see on the left we have the darker shade and they have green in it, unfortunately. And here's the final result for adding the green Kelly green to our brilliant yellow. So here we have when we added Caribbean blue to brilliant yellow, and this is adding green Kelly to brilliant yellow. So this is what I was kind of expecting. We have some similar shades, however those ones are paler, and that is because in green Kelly it's a green premix, so we know that there is yellow and blue for sure. We don't know exactly the composition of the recipe, but we know that there will be those colors, so it makes sense that this side is paler compared to this one. But it's still very interesting to see the depth of the shade as well. So I feel like here, since we have a 1-for-1, if you wanted to tune down Kelly green, because it's a very vibrant color, adding some yellow into it would still keep the warmth of green Kelly green anyways, but you would tone it down quite a lot, but you would still keep that very vibrant shade, but not as vibrant. I don't know if it makes sense, but this is very interesting contrast in color, that's for sure. But this is what I was expecting when we did this in the first place. I just wasn't sure how different like how big of a contrast it would be, because this is more like, you can see that. So this was adding the Caribbean blue, and this looks like very similar to this one. So that's also very interesting, because we're going in different direction, but at the same time we're going in the same direction. So it's very interesting to see. If you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye!